Hey everybody, welcome Pandemonium. That was what was the pre-show for us, Pandemonium. Welcome to Discussing Tabletop. Hey, hope everybody's having a great Saturday. It's the April 20th. It is both 420, if that is something that is legal within your state or your country, and you wish to celebrate it. And also it is the day before Easter, right? Day before Easter? Yeah. Sure. So if you celebrate that, just the fact you celebrate a giant mutant rabbit delivering you eggs, or there's religious connotations for it, either or, have a good one for that one too. Anyway, let's get into this week's topics, because hey, that's what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about tabletop and sometimes some other things. I'm going to say sometimes because I'm going to pretend it's sometimes we talk about other things. Look, we're not always off topic. I don't know what you're talking about. It's like technical issues. You can never get away from them. So yeah, today we have a docket ahead of us. War of the Spark Mythic Edition. We want to talk about it because Wizards didn't learn a lesson. There are two Star Trek adventures, two Star Trek RPG adventures out. Yeah. Cmon Games has announced a God of War game based on the latest game. The Hellboy game is in pre-order. And then Crytozoic Games has announced a Challenge of the Superfriends game. Because Superfriends. And then I did want to mention that Gloom of Thrones, which we talked about previously, the Kickstarter has gone live, just because we did talk about it as a topic in the main section previously. And then we'll get into our regular segments of our deeper discussion, our Kickstarter Korner, which we do have a couple more Kickstarters to talk about, our Week in Tabletop, and finally Consult the Table, where you can just, if you don't throw something in chat during this episode, you can finally shove us a, question there. Something that's not related to everything we're talking about here. Sure, what? I don't know. Probably. I don't know. Let's talk about Magic. Okay. So, if you had not been around for a previous episode, we had previously talked about the Mythic Edition of Ravnica Allegiance, which was a debacle. It was a debacle. That's the easiest way to describe it. They tried to sell it on Hasbro's online store, which was a debacle in and of itself. There was a lot of problems related to it. The product itself is this, it's a middle ground. It has advantages and disadvantages, I think, hugely comparison to the advantages and disadvantages of the previous, mythic cards they would put in sets. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, they had the, I'm forgetting what those special lands were, and then they had the explorations in Ixalan, and they had, the Egyptian-style cards in a Monket, but, in Zendikar, they were expeditions, I think. I remembered it. So they all had, special super mythic cards that were, full art cards that occasionally, very rarely in packs, you could run across one. Maybe one a box. Different than normal mythics. They were something special. They were full art cards. I'm showing off the Nicol Bolas Dragon God full art card, which is, it's cool looking. This is the card that is in this set, and this is the version of it that's the mythic version in this one, if that's hard to explain. This is the Nicol Bolas that's in the War of the Spark, so that's why I wanted to show them off here. But anyway, so limited number of units. Alright, I'm unsure whether they've switched it up that they're shipping to the US. They're saying it's also in the Hasbro's eBay shop now. Is that different than the original Hasbro shop, too? Hasbro store. Yes, it actually is. So there was a Hasbro shop that is their own. So they've actually made at least one stride here. That is the Hasbro toy shop in eBay, rather than their own ones. So Here we're already seeing a plus. Still, it's limited to per person, which I mean is a good thing because it prevents people from buying a lot of copies and reselling them. They're not planning on reprints. They're only putting out 12,000 units, which I'm unsure if there's any more, if that's more or less than the previous one. That's a really good question. That I can look into. But you know, it's hitting on a lot of things for this that I don't know if it's necessarily a good thing. I can't see very quickly how many units it was. There's probably somewhere that talks about it. The article that announced it previously for Ravnica Allegiance didn't tell me directly how many units were being sold. But they were doing it like... They've had a lot of weird experiments with this entire thing. And I think that's one of the big problems, is their experiences are weird. Okay, they also had the limited of 12,000 units. I was able to look that up finally. That's good. This entire, like, Mythic Editions have been a mixed bag, I think. You're really spending a lot of money for the promo cards, basically. It's what it is. Because only 24 packs is of the standard 36 that you get in a box. And it's $250 instead of, like, the average box being around $106 or $100 plus tax. So, I mean, you're getting a third less cards. So, effectively, you're only spending $66 on the cards. Because, yeah, wouldn't that be the math? I'm thinking I'm doing it right there. So, you're just going and you're putting forth that you're spending $200 for 8 full art cards. Now, I do have to say, like, if you're buying them individually, probably eventually they will be more than 200 apiece. Well, not more than 200 apiece, but combined they will be more than 200. I don't know. I've always kind of, like, looked at these and said to myself, I don't know if this is good or not. You know, the Mythic Editions. It's better than the previous masterpieces, I guess, because the Expeditions and all the others were their masterpiece ones. But, I mean, like, I think the Guilds of Ravnica was the worst. Of the with the way they released it, and then we had Allegiance, Ravnica Allegiance, which I don't think we talked about much actually in comparison, and then more of the Spark now, which they've been getting better with distributing them and getting them out there. But like every time one of these comes out, you do hear about horror stories that are related to the entire. People getting them, people not having problems with ordering them, all the things like that. I don't know. Because I'm also curious as how many were produced previously. Because the fact is, a lot more boxes were probably produced. And, like, the 25 Zendikar Expeditions, how many were produced? Like, that's a question that's kind of hard to answer. Like, because you have to consider that if it's 12,000 were produced of each of them, they were 12,000 in X packs that were sold of Zendikar. Yeah, so I think that's the big advantage here. You're guaranteed something. Again, it's also that, like, are they all decent things? They've been doing all Planeswalkers lately. So, I mean, Planeswalkers, it's hard to have trash things. Like, if you looked at the previous ones, like even the expeditions, the inventions, the invocations of the previous sets, they had trash stuff in them. So you could get a trash one. It's cool. It's much more expensive than it normally would be. But in the retail price world, if you're buying a whole bunch of boxes in order to get one, you're probably still skunked. But then again, it's like you're not really paying any extra for it. You're still getting a lot of cards. And that's the other thing, too. The other ones before, I'm still getting a huge thing of cards. I'm still getting, like, all these different cards that are, there. While, on the other hand, if I'm looking at this, I'm actually spending money on the cards. And, it's arguments to say about, various things for that, like, yes, you're guaranteeing the price of it. You don't have to buy the extra boxes, but it's collections, and it's also you're getting it's, I guess it's free versus spending money for a lot of it too. Second here. Sorry, give me a second here. Adjusting stuff. There we go. Yeah. So, anyway. Yeah, so, I don't know. I always have arguments to get for and against these things, and I can see, like, I really just feel like, why don't you just market them on their own? Just something that's alongside of it that's like, $200 for 8, like, full art, specialized promos. And if people want to get them, they want to get them. They're not linked to the cards at all. They can be ones that are related to the sets and all, and then people can get them because there's, like, just specialized something or other. When you're linking them to the boxes, then it definitely does make it feel like a weird cheapening at this point in time between the two. But mm-hmm. Yes. Just buying it. So I don't know. The Masterpiece series, and especially like this one, it's Mythic Edition War of the Spark. If you're up for it, great for you, but I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of it overall, just because of certain aspects of it. Oh, I minimized that. Great. Let's move on. It kind of gets me this, like, weird spot where I'm not sure, but all right, let's talk about something a little better, a little bit more interesting. Star Trek RPG has a couple of adventures out. Yeah, so the two adventures are, of course, A Forest Apart and Nest in the Dark. Nest in the Dark is the one that came out both came out this week, but the fat one came out first, and then it's like when I saw one was announced, it was like, oh, okay. And then there was a second one. It's like, wow. Yes, for an adventure. Which, yeah, the truth is when you get a lot of adventures, they can be a lot of, they can be expensive. Definitely. I think for D&D, normally when you're spending a lot more like that, you also get a lot more worth of your stuff, kind of thing. You know, that's the only thing I have to say about it. You know, you're getting like a Curse of Strahd book. At least in D&D is now. It's much more expensive, but it's like this. I feel like is you're doing like it's a 22 page PDF. It's a episode of Star Trek kind of thing. I think they're one's 19, the other's 22. They're an episode. While, like, a Curse of Strahd would be, like, more, maybe not, like, a overarching, huge campaign, would be a lot bigger. Pathfinder, I think, is the one that they have a little mixed bag of this, because I think theirs tend to be around $10 for something like this. They're a little bit more expensive, because they do a lot of these small, single adventure books. But this, I think, is not a bad price for a single adventure, and the pages is good. You know, $6 is not bad. Both seem very interesting adventures. There's this, what is this one? You encounter an ancient damaged vessel, a geodesic dome. The forest apart, yeah. Yeah. Time accelerated insects. It's so very Star Trek. I'm sorry. Yeah, you know what? Jeez. And then you also have like there's another civilization which apparently is like Bronze Age, but the trees believe that their homeland, their ancient homeland, is there. So it's trying to figure out like, oh well, you know, they're trying to get there anyway. Oh man, it's definitely a adventure I could see. And the thing is, it doesn't like say this is more. It's supposed to be original series era, but I'm guessing you could. It says like it has advice for adapting it to other ones. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, again, I think it's like they each put them in like a specific era it's best for, but you. Yes. Which is cool. And the other one is Nest in the Dark, where your warp drive fails and there's an alien construct, which I'm not going to even read what kind of brain, like a network computer thing. And there's living entities within the brain, and it's also going towards a Federation colony, and it's like, wow, it's these do sound very Star Trek-y. Yeah, so they all sound very Star Trek-y, which is great. I mean, that's one of those things, is if you get someone that can effectively write a Star Trek like episode, that's all you're doing, because that's one of the great things, is you're writing a Star Trek episode without just like the basics of it. I think that's the interesting thing, is like you're just like you're not writing what your characters are doing, you're not writing how they're reacting to things, you're writing like the basic information about what's going on here and setting up an establishment of it. So it's pretty cool. I like these, and I'm glad they're putting out more of them. I think we talked about they put out a few of them beforehand. So great, and I'm glad that they're putting out more of them. I would like to see some of the other, because I think they've been focusing a lot on original series and next gen, which is great. But I would like to definitely see some more of things like, you know, maybe Voyager or Deep Space Nine. Like if it's because I guess there's a style to each of them, you know, and I guess that's what they try to go for these adventures, the style of those series. And I think the other shows in Star Trek that we haven't seen as much material on them. And I would like to see more. But, I mean, Motiefuse is working on it, so I guess it's a positive thing. So it's cool. Yes, it's high on my list. It's one that I hope to organize something for. So, we'll see, though. Work on it. But the Star Trek Adventures, the Nest in the Dark, Farthest Apart, $6 if you want to play them, and it's just, they're, you know, it's pre-made adventures like this that's just like reading through like how they're establishing them that are very good pre-made adventures, and they might even help you be inspired for your own at some point in time. So I would recommend checking them out, maybe getting at least one of them, to give you an idea of a good Star Trek adventure, because it's like, you might know a Star Trek TV show, but how to build the adventures, that's something that maybe you need, like, you want to get a good example of. And that's what I also like pre-made adventures. They're good examples of things. Even if you don't use them, they're something helpful. So. True. Very true. You want to move on then to the next topic we got here? All right. Let's talk about the God of War, the card game by Cmon Games. So this is definitely based on the latest God of War game, which is for PS4. I'm getting that right, I think. It's a big hit, success. I personally don't have a PS4, so I haven't had a chance to play through it, but I did watch some folks play through a good chunk of the game. I don't think I played through to the end. And it's a good story, and it's like an update to it that keeps a lot of the essence of God of War and stuff, but we're not talking about the video game here. They're doing a card game based on it with everybody's favorite Spartan in Norse mythology. Because that's what the game was. There was a lot more to it. There was actual story, there was actual character development, and, you know, I guess we can't really say that it's hard to say what they're doing for it. They're only talking about a little bit about what it is. They're doing like monsters, locations of the video game. The cards are double-sided, depending on the section has been destroyed or not. I guess for quests, it's like quests are various ones, and you need strategies to do them. Earlier quests will have an effect on what comes after them, so I'm guessing quests have ongoing effects that either make things more difficult or easier, depending on how they were completed. Yeah. And it's made that each game is different, which is good. I mean, a lot of these card games, each character's dashboard will have their own special abilities, health, and number of cards the player can keep in their hand. I'm not sure how they're looking at the different characters. If there's just like, if it's 1 to 4 players. So, I mean, you're playing against the board in a way, but I don't know if you're playing together either. They don't really say. It's like what-if scenarios, too. So it's combining stuff from the game and, I guess, other places. And I guess they're saying it's halting Ragnarok, too. And I guess Kratos is like, well, I'm living here. I might as well help out, I guess. You know? I guess my son lives here, too. I'm sorry, boy. Yes. So it's interesting. And I guess it seems to be deck constructions, because it does talk about deck construction too. So I'm curious, because we don't know a lot about it, because it is coming out the 3rd quarter of this year. So we'd have to definitely see more. But anyway, I thought it was an interesting one, because it's like, I don't know if there had been a lot of God of War properties before now. And I do feel like this is a good resurgence point for it. And it is, you know, the previous ones were like early PS2. So, I mean, that's a long time ago at this point in time. We're a PS4 now. I mean, hell. God. So when I'm thinking about it, I'm like, wow. Did we have board games? Board games were coming back in that time. That was, you know, we had Munchkin and Settlers. but it wasn't like now, so I don't know if we had a previous... No. I don't think we did either. Like, because if I look up, you know, God of War board game, this is the one that comes up. Where's the one announced? So I don't think there had been one previously. So it's the first one, which is interesting, and it seems like they're taking the material and they're not going in a bad direction overall. They're just doing it like, this is not related to the story kind of thing, you know. We're using settings, characters, things like that, which, I mean, I haven't always argued with it, especially for games that are supposed to have a lot more, like, plot. Because there's plenty of card and board games where the plot is throwaway. It's not that they're bad, but the plot and, like, the setup is definitely just, like, meh, throwaway. You don't need to worry about that. So, yeah. I'm curious enough to take a further look at it and maybe want to like check out the rules, see how they end up actually putting the game together, and what the real depths of whatever they're setting up with for taking a licensed property is. Because that's one of those things is licensed properties can be hit or miss. I mean, we were talking about some licensed properties that were pretty mis-sounding a little while ago. I mean, everybody remembers It Clue. It Clue. So, that's the kind of thing that puts you on licensed game speculation that you go, ooh. This one at least seems better? I don't know. I guess we'll have to keep a lookout at it and maybe check it out again when it's getting closer to coming out. Get an idea of how it really is. But speaking of licensed game, though, there are pre-orders for the Hellboy board game. There's also apparently collector's editions for... it's British pounds, so this seems expensive because it's British pounds. I'm pretty sure that's pounds, right? Yeah, I'm on Mantic Games website, and I'm checking this out here, and it's $75 for the normal edition, British pounds. So I'm curious as to like, what the hell is in this game? That's a collector's edition there, if you're seeing it, which is 150 British pounds. Which, I want some conversion rate here, thank you very much, which I'm going to quickly do while we're talking about this here. I mean, the collector's edition includes a Conquer the Worm expansion. Okay, the collector's edition includes a lot more, is the other thing. It includes 2 expansions and the Kickstarter exclusive miniatures, scenarios, and more. So the fact is they are selling the Kickstarter exclusives. God, I'm not spelling $2. So it's $200 for the collector's edition and $100 for the normal edition. There you go, I looked it up. So, I mean, the pre-orders were technically for yesterday. So, the pre-orders started this week and weren't that long. It is a miniatures game, if you take a look at it. So, I mean, that's cool. And miniatures games are always more expensive. So, I'm not going to bust that it's like $100. Miniature games tend to be more expensive, especially if they've got a lot of miniatures. I'm not even sure how many miniatures they have, though, is the problem. And it's being, like, basically a member of the BPRD, which is the, like, group Hellboy's a member of. You're exploring Gothic locations, hunting down clues, discovering artifacts, fighting fierce creatures, and terrifying bosses. The The miniatures don't seem like enough for an expensive game like that, because it's 4 agents, 18 minions, 3 bosses, 13 custom dice, 12 double-sided card stack rube titles, 160 cards, 120 tokens and counters, and the guide and book. I don't know. Maybe it's just more expensive in the UK, and you can get it for cheaper here in the US, but I don't know either. Because, I mean, the Kickstarter was last year, and I don't remember if we talked about it. The Kickstarter earned a lot of money, though, I have to say, when I'm, like, looking at it here. It got well over £1 million. Almost 1.5 million pounds, but they only wanted 100,000. So, I mean, it certainly got its money's worth there, I'm curious as if the shipping happened, because with the collector's edition, that's the thing. That's Kickstarter stuff. So did they were supposed to ship out earlier this year, it looks like. They were estimating February of this year. Did they ship out on time? And now, like, after a couple months, they're releasing, like, a collector's edition, which might be more than what the people that got it on Kickstarter are spending. Yeah, especially because it's like the Kickstarter. In which one? In the collect. Oh. Mm-hmm. Wait. The content difference is pretty insane here, actually. You know, like, if you, like, look at the list. Uh-huh. Bonus core game minions. Okay, so the bonus core game minions is something that you can get anyway, which is, like, I think it's so? I don't know. Yeah. Okay, so they got a lot more plastic components there, too. Wow. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess it's for an extra $100. You're getting 2 expansions and, like, a billion more miniatures. So, and a lot of bonus miniatures. So I think on, like, this case, I would say go for the $200. You're already spending, like, 100 for the other one. Get the extra 100 for everything. It looks like it's worth it. I don't know. It's really hard to say at this point in time because it is an expensive board game. But again, I don't know, like, how things are in Britain to compare the prices too. Yeah. That's... Yeah. And it looks like you can get it for a much cheaper price at certain other places. Like, I'm looking at here that it's being offered for $75 somewhere, which is 75, like, looks like dollars. Well, yeah, I don't know. I guess well, that might be also a place that is getting in a big shipment of them and selling it out, because it looks like the company itself, like, even you can get it through Amazon, but then it's like $100 and $20 shipping. So, I mean, it's nice and expensive. types of games like this are expensive, but this just feels a little bit more than what is in your average one, because like the D&D ones are around like 70 or 80. And so I don't know if it's necessarily worth it overall for the price here, but well, like not for the $200 one. The $200 one definitely, but like the 25 before. I'm sorry, if I pull up my Curse of Strahd, I'm sure I have 25 miniatures in it at least, you know, or one of the other ones like that. I don't know exactly the number of miniatures in them, but I thought I had an okay number of them, because there's a couple of characters and a bunch of monsters, because they have an okay number of monsters, just for some variety. Not an insane amount of them, but variety. Then again, it's like also the total number of pieces, too. Like, dice shouldn't be, but are expensive, and it's got a whole bunch of dice in comparison to, like, one that would have. And then it's the amount of tokens, is a lot of tokens of stuff, too. Because, oh yeah, no. And they've got 13 custom game dice. And, like, Curse of Strahd, it's got a D20. That's it. You know? I'm sorry, it's got a D20. That's the major big dice collection that they got in there. And, you know, I think the cards, 160 cards, those are kind of hard to judge. And then the card stock tokens and counters, 120 of them is a lot. So it's like even the $100 one, you are getting a lot for it. It's just, I guess it comes down to that of, since the price is kind of on that cusp, is, are you a Hellboy fan? Because this feels like it's definitely more the original comic, definitely. Which I'm not going to even get into like any of the other Hellboy properties, because that is a weird conundrum of existence. The original movies weren't bad. I think like the original movies were good for what they were, but they weren't very the comics, because the comics are a little more hardcore, you know, and they went for a PG-13 rating than an R rating. And what's his face? I can't remember. Ron Perlman did a really good job, and Del Toro, I'm forgetting his first name because I'm going to pronounce it. Starts with a yes. Yes, I normally could, but it's like escaping me the exact. But he was a good director. Yeah, like something like but he is a very good director. And the first movie I think was very good. I liked it a lot. I like that one. The second movie, it's fine. It's a sequel. It's not great as the first. It has a lot of problems, but it's sequel movies. You know, that you very rarely get a better or equivalent sequel movie. Sometimes you do. Many times you don't. The new one I haven't seen. I've heard mixed reviews about it. There's a lot of people that dislike it. There's some people that thought it was okay. Mm-hmm. I think so too. Like, yeah. Because if you look at the Ron Perlman's much more chiseled individual, and if you look at like any of the comic illustrations and stuff, Hellboy tends to be a much more chiseled individual, you know, that kind of thing. So at least like face wise, I think is where it kind of stands out. I think he's a little thin, I guess, on the face is what it is what the big thing that stands out. A little. Yeah. I mean, it's fine. I think it depends on how the movie is. Yeah. It's one of the movies I may still see in theaters, and I haven't decided whether or not I'm going to or not. I still have to go see Shazam, so I think that's the first one, because that was out first. I have movies to see before freaking Avengers come out, but I know I'm not seeing Avengers the first week, just so I can, like... If I can see it the Tuesday after it comes out, good luck on that one, you know? It's going to be sold out a lot of places. Or if I can just see it, like, an unusual time, like in the Monday afternoon or something, you know? where there'll be less people around. Yeah, so we're behind on movies, but both of us. But getting back to Hellboy, the game, it definitely, like, if you see a lot of the components and the artwork, they're definitely going a lot closer towards... They're trying to catch the comic feel. So, I mean, that's fine. People like the comics. They've always been a good thing. That's the thing, is, like, when you talk about, like, a comic series and you say, like, oh, the Hellboy comic series, people will be like, that's a good comic series. There you go. So you're going off of something that's automatically good. Not to say that there aren't bad stories in it, because there's always that way in comics. Comics are long going, and it's like a TV series. There are Star Trek episodes which are really great. There are Star Trek episodes that are like, same with everything. But anyway, I don't know if there's anything else to say about the Hellboy one. The pre-orders were I think the pre-orders started. It's a pre-orders begin shipping April 19th. So I can still click the pre-order, even though it began shipping yesterday. They're a little... Oh, and the collector's edition's out of stock, and who knows if they get more of them. So actually, that's the other thing. The collector's editions, watch for it, because they might do more of them, if that's the one you want with all the extra stuff. Because a lot of those expansion stuff aren't out on their own yet, even, because the base game just was coming out. So anyway, let's move on. Let's move on. We're gonna talk about Super Friends. So let's go here for something rather. My experience with Super Friends is it's old Cartoon Network. That's where I saw it from. If you had seen any of it, it's old 60s, 70s television is the best way to describe it, because it was the Justice League, except Hanna-Barbera version of it. So it was a lot more friendly. Not to say that comics don't have a lot of, like, kid-friendly aspects to it, but this was, like, none of the darker tones and stuff that can sometimes be found in comics, especially even, like, DC and Marvel. Both of them have it. All of that was kind of filtered out. So it was just the, campy stuff, which comics have always a mixture of. And I think DC always had a little bit more of the campiness. But again, like, Batman got into some crap, even in the 60s and 70s. Got into some crap. Not having any of that. So that's, our essence of where Super Friends come from. And Challenge of the Super Friends was one of those series where they fought the Legion of Doom, which is a bunch of their villains getting together and coming up with really dumb plans to fight them. So it's based on that classic animated TV show. It's supposed to be easy to learn, 2 to 4 players. They're using some of previously used game engines that Crytozoic had done before. They've only really announced it now, so we don't have a full set of details about it. It is a card game. You'll be taking the roles of Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Batman, Robin, and you reveal power cards to defeat the Legion of Doom while avoiding traps set by the supervillains. So it looks like they're just sticking with some of the basics of the characters of the Challenge of the Super Friends, even though there's a bunch of other ones that they could probably add in, like we don't even see Flash here, or Black Lightning, or Hawkman, or who else was in it? The Wonder Twins, and was an Apache Chief in there? God, Apache Chief. There was some very questionable things from the 60s and 70s. It was both, nice that they were supposed to be representative, but it was also like, are you a good representative of, people here? I'm just saying, is it good? That's not for me, because I am not either Native American or African American, to say for our good friend Black Lightning and Apache Chief if they were good representations of their cultures in the way that they were doing them. But anyway, so yeah. Yes, I'm check anyway. Its build is only take 20 minutes, so it's a small card game. 82 cards. It probably is not going to be too expensive. 4 power decks, 10 cards each. 32 objective cards and 10 challenge cards. The rule book. It's using the Griffin engine, which I am not quite sure about. It's something that Crytozoic uses. So apparently it is also... They're retailing... They're saying it's going to be 15. Pretty cheap, actually. Not bad for a card game. Boom. Right up my wheelhouse, like something, you know. As someone that does not have a lot of expendable money, something like the Hellboy game, which is very expensive, is like, I have to really like this to spend that much money. $15 is easy to spend in comparison. So it's the player with the highest victory points total after 6 rounds, the winner of the match, and the player who wins prevails in 2 matches is the game winner. So it looks like the matches are pretty quick, a lot of rounds, very like quick throwing out cards. It's all about, you know, comparing power values to what's needed kind of thing, you know, and like to each other. And there's special power cards that each of the heroes each individually have. So, you know, and it does look like it's a thing that they could have easy expansions for, more characters too, if it becomes something that's, you know, successful. There probably were more characters that I don't remember, because again, I watched this at Cartoon Network back in the day when it was a lot of Hanna-Barbera cartoons and Boomerang. And even then, most of the time I see any of this reference nowadays is for comedy. I have to say that. Most times when I see Super Friends reference, it's in a comical comedy manner that, you know, gets people chuckling to themselves, because it wasn't bad for the time, but now if we look at it, it's just ridiculous, you know. It's like watching a lot of old, like, Hanna-Barbera cartoons. They're kinda silly. So, I mean, I don't know if I would say this is the best way to release it in anyway, but, we got it. I mean, it's again, it's a great price for a little card game. 15, like, you know, $10 to $15 for a card game. And especially something that's technically a licensed card game, $15 is not bad. You know, if it was something more generic, I would see it going for maybe 10. But for something with a license, 15, not bad. Oh, yes. Well, Crytozoic does a lot of Warner Brothers, DC things, too. They're not the only ones, but I've seen that they do a lot of things. Like, but Crytozoic does a lot of other products, too. It's like when it's one of those things that's like, when I check their site for news and stuff, a lot of the news is not so tabletop related that I'm going to talk about it. You know, unfortunately. So, but I'm glad they're putting out something it's making us talk about it. So that's good. But, Challenge of the Super Friends, the card game. It's going to be available, it's available now, actually. They announced it, and it's available now. I like those. It was announced on the 15th, and I like how I look down here, and I'm like, wait a second. It's available the 17th. I like how when news breaks over the course of a week, because we're a weekly show, and it resolves as news, you know, it's like, we're announcing the game, and then I, like, look up, I'm like, wait, it's already out. It's like the Hellboy pre-orders. We're pre-ordering for shipping on the 19th. So you announced it, and sent it out in less than a week. So it's actually available now for $15. Because it came out 2 days after they announced it. It was a quick one. Alright, let's do a follow-up to a previous talk. I don't know how in-depth we're going to go for this one, but hey, Gloom of Thrones, the Kickstarter is out. So I did want to have us hit on it, because we did talk a little bit about Gloom of Thrones, which is basically... It's a generic... I feel like it seems very generic Game of Thrones, but Gloom over top of it kind of thing. So, it still has 9 days to go, so if you're watching this at any point in time between now and 9 days from now, which, if I'm going at the rate I'm going, it should be up on YouTube if you're not watching this on now on Twitch, or if you're not watching it on the highlights, which I'll put the entire show up on highlights on Twitch, then yes, within 9 days you could back it. It's funded. Yay. It's about twice its funding, and it's Gloom, but with a, Game of Thrones style, twist to it, without being actual Game of Thrones, because it seems like they didn't want to pay for the license, because it's like the Snarks and the Bannisters and the umpteenth kingdom of Gloom kingdoms. It sounds a lot like Game of Thrones, but it's not, so I don't know. And Gloom is fun. Gloom's a really good one. If you missed it, I think, were you busy or were you with it? We did it. You were there with us. I had to remember who was busy. It was Blaze that's busy. But you were we played Gloom. So it's kind of... I didn't even know it was released. So, apparently, though, for $25 you get the standard edition with free shipping. There's a deluxe edition for $50 for backing them, and for $250 they have 12 Gloom games with free shipping, including Gloom of Thrones. That's a hell of a thing. I'm not sure how much that's actually worth it. Well, it is the standard and deluxe they're giving you with that. Gloom, Fairy Tale Gloom, Gloom in Space, Munchkin Gloom, Cthulhu Gloom, Happy Homes, Unquiet Dead, Unfortunate Explosions, Unwelcome Gifts, Unpleasant Dreams, Gloom Digital, Foot of the Ruler Pin, Gloom of Thrones Lanyard, and free shipping anywhere in the world for $250. Yes. Wow. I know. What is it? Oh my god. Oh god, that's ridiculous. No one has taken it, but I like it. So apparently they also have, you can create your own card for $750, and they will give you 500 copies of it for you to either hoard yourself, distribute in your own way, or they say, like, burn on a pyre to the glory of the Head of Light. So it's sort of like, you get 500 copies of a card you designed yourself for $750 that you can do with as you will. Wow. That's crazy. But I like it. It's a silly... It's one of those big ones that, it's like, is someone going to take this? Maybe. Maybe not. But hey, we're going to offer it. Anyway, it's a parody. It's out now. We talked about it a little bit when we saw it announced, and now you can get back to Kickstarter. But anyway, hey, let's move on more to our regular segments because we have them. Nothing deeper discussion. We haven't had a chance to test any new games out, but let's go to some Our Week in Tabletop. How about that? Hey, we talked about we played Gloom. I unfortunately had a very good start and had some things that both screwed over you and Lindsay, but I could not follow through because the deck hated me. It's like I was trying to keep... I had like 2 very good cards in my hand, so I couldn't discard my entire hand. So I was then just discarding enough cards to try to get something good, and it wasn't working. Because the 2 very good cards, I couldn't just play at all, because they were very, like, timely cards. Like, one of them was that, like, Prevent a Death card I had in my hand for the longest time. And another one was an Untimely Death that was very good, that I wanted to play on my own things, but I hadn't have negative people. So yeah, I started out really great, and I just couldn't follow through. Mm-hmm. It was great. Yeah, you just had like very like yeah, nothing bad. It's like it's -10, but nothing bad happens. Or occasionally there's a -15, but nothing bad happens. It's like yes, these are very good minuses, but I can't either, or I like to discard by hand, or I have to like draw less cards, or I can't draw. Yep. And then I had Legacies of Kain this week, and we've had Madness. Both of us where we're at. Legacies of Kain, they went with the giant. I think it's Samsa. It's the giant bioengineered were-cockroaches. They went with them to meet with some actual werewolves, which were their friends, and then kind of try to get into a fight with the werewolves because one of them was very belligerent towards them. Because the werewolves they hated them automatically, but they were also like, yeah, we're not going to kill you. Which, I mean, for things that feel like all vampires that normally should be purified, that was pretty good. They were asking for a lot for them to be a lot friendlier than that, you know? I'm just saying. And anyway, then one of them went with them to Chicago, and along the way they had a spiritual journey. He basically allowed them to have a spiritual journey where they all communed with the Great Lord Cockroach. Learn some things about themselves, learn some things about their history, about things they have to do. It was a fun quest. It was very interesting. And as I said, I love my vampire game because I come with like 5 minutes of prep work about what I want to do, and then I just let it roll with what they decide. Like, I was thinking they might have done more to make peace with the werewolves, so bam. When they were that belligerent, I'm like, okay, we're taking a different direction here. And then, like, the spiritual journey thing, I was like, okay, what can we do here to, like, get them on the main quest? And it evolved into much different than I thought it was going to be, and it was a lot more interesting. And it drew them back towards, like, the original, like, entire overall storyline that I'm trying to build there. And then in Madness, which unfortunately, you were able to join this week because of work issues. Yeah, you were basically called to stay at work for some issues. And they finished up the tower. And they found the effect of the map that the wizards of the tower had created. The map of all the worlds. Which only provides a little bit of information, but it's a lot more than you guys had. And so they've now managed to acquire that. And they fought a clay golem, which they actually beat up pretty well. The clay golem was pretty mean. One of them has, I think it's, who has it? I think it's Tiv has 19 less hit points for the foreseeable future. Because you need some powerful magic to undo the hit point loss of a goddamn clay golem. And I don't know if you guys have that right now. So, that's a fun thing. And we had another puzzle, and this puzzle went much better than the last one. There was one hint in the puzzle that wasn't as good as the others, but it was not nearly as bad as the last problem that had in it. They managed to solve the others very well. This one, it was a little bit of issues, but, like, it wasn't nearly as bad. So, it was like, it seems to be that, like, when I have 4 clues, 3 of them are very good, and 1 is bad, always it seems like. Or 1 is just not as good. So. And that was, I guess, did you do anything else this week, Joe? Oh, I did do something else, which I can't fully talk about. I played in a D&D game that is being used for something special. I'm not going to go into details about it. I will say that my character is a dwarven bard, and I liked playing him. It was a fun sort of inaugural adventure. It was enjoyable. I'm going to be glad that we're going to be doing it more. When I know how it's going to be released to the public and how people are going to see it, I will let people know. I'm going to save the stories about it for there. I'll keep it very simple, not go into details, but I'll say that my character is unexpectedly a diplomat, and unexpectedly ended up at a wedding celebration or a wedding announcement, like that a wedding's going to happen, that went awry. Mm-hmm. I'll keep it definitely simple, just because I don't want to reveal too much for the person that's putting it out. That's our DM. That when his when he finally gets his project together and releases it in some capacity, maybe I'll I'll try to keep little summaries if we play it like this. That my dwarven bard, went to a party unexpectedly, set us on an adventure when it went awry. But okay, Kickstarter Korner. Joe, you have something for us. Why don't you provide? Sure. Link in chat, and we will chat about it. While you're putting that together, I can say man, I've been finally good at putting stuff out on YouTube, including old episodes of Discussing Tabletop, and they're finally coming out at a not reasonable rate, because I'm just trying to throw them all out there, and probably by Wednesday, this show was going to go up on YouTube on Wednesday or Thursday at the rate I've been going. But I hadn't believed how many goddamn Sundays at the tabletop I've been behind. And then also, I was actually behind a pretty decent amount on both Madness Land and Legacies of King. Madness should be catching up relatively soon. Legacies, it's probably going to be not even this week, but the week after that I'm finally not putting out one show a day. And Tabletop's going to be longer. Or Sundays. Yeah, so, ugh. Well, it's good that I am throwing them out there for, on... They've been up on Twitch here. I kept them highlighted so people could see them, but I'm throwing them up to YouTube finally, because that's my more popular site. So yes, if you're watching here and you want to see a lot more of my content, check out my YouTube side, because there's a lot more people over there, and a lot of actual other tabletop content related, just in general. A lot more scripted stuff. Anyway, so Joe, Link, excellent. What do you got to talk about? Takenoko. Yes. Okay. Okay. So it looks like the components, when you say giant, we don't mean insane giant. It's yeah. It looks like it's 4 or 5 times bigger than the original ones. So the original ones, if I would put my hand out, well, this big. Yeah, they're a lot bigger. Mm-hmm. Yes. I don't know. It might be something slightly different. There's all adorable baby pandas too, apparently. That are... Oh, I think it was because the Chibi's expansion had some of that stuff. I think they are you can get the... Okay, so you can get giant Takenoko Chibis too. You can get that's got the Miss Panda, and you can get both giant games together plus some other stuff. Oh God, because the giant one, because it's so large, it is quite much more expensive than the normal one, and it makes sense. and it looks like they're unlocking more baby pandas for the baby panda set kind of things. Yeah, because they're at 36. Oh, they're at 36 to 15 days to go. They might hit a whole lot more of these stretch goals. But if you're like looking just for Giant Takenoko Chibis, which is the expansion, is $100. The normal Giant Takenoko is $200. But I mean, for massive plastic miniatures that go from like, you know, this big to like this big for like a giant plastic like full thing, and all the pieces are giant components too. I mean, damn. I have to get the Chibis expansion, I guess, because it adds some interesting things. I might just get the normal one. No giant sorry. It is expensive. Oh, cool. Huh. Oh, so it's like... Oh, it's satirical. So it's sort of like doing Big Eyes, Small Mouth, only it's like a satire version of it. Okay. Yep. And the digital PDF version of it is $5. No. That's pretty early into the entire thing. Which is the exact same as Bessem, if you've ever played that. It has been a while since we played Bessem. Wow. Yeah. Cool. And you know, like, interesting satire games are always good to see, and we don't get as much. Yeah, so that's cool. Neat. Yeah, those are good ones. Well, I found two I do want to talk about. One I want to mention because, well, you know what? It's on brand to talk about it, and that's Vampire the Masquerade Heritage. It is a board game based on the Vampire Masquerade, license. It is nearly 10 times... Okay, they had a goal around 40,000. They're nearly 300,000. So it's got 9 days to go. It's an ever-changing game of intrigue over 700 years in the Vampire the Masquerade world. It's... I don't know the... It's about... Whatever it is about equal to US dollars. So it's like the retail edition and all the stretch goals, $66 to get it. Not bad. They do have a Kickstarter edition... with all the stretch goals and stuff, and a bunch of other things, that's for 100. So it's like, you know, it's Europe in the year 1300, but we're working on the vampires and stuff. So it's like playing through that area. It's 2 to 4 players. It's playtime of 15 to 20 minutes per player. So they're assuming that, like, if you got 4 players, you're like an hour and a half. You know, if you got 2 players, it shouldn't take too long. You're basically building a bloodline. So you're like unique characters that are building like it's your bloodline of a top-down vampire going. If you know anything about Vampire the Masquerade, you know your sire and going over, and time goes by, and you're meant. It's supposed to be like you're supposed to play a campaign of 7 chapters, 21 games over 700 years, and you can play through it differently each time, which is really kind of cool. So it's like, I guess each chapter, which is like a time period, is 3 games. So it's like it's got a lot of interesting replayability because like you can do that kind of like individual 100 missions, or like you can use generic missions to play the game like a regular board game. So you can play through like a big story campaign mode, or you could just play it just for fun at times too, which is cool too, you know. So it's sort of like it's one of those things that I guess I would love to have in like one of the D&D board games that they don't really have, like Curse of Strahd. It's got a bunch of missions that you can either play individually or as a campaign. Yes, playing through each mission on its own will be different every time, but it's the same goddamn mission. And this one having like 100 individual history-based missions is a lot more than you have in something like the D&D game, which has maybe 24. So they've got clan leader cards, and then 80 unique character cards with 2 sides. The rule book, the main boards, battlegrounds boards, the campaign books, 84 clan schemes, 150 historical mission cards, 48 background schemes and cards, a bunch of wooden cubes, tokens, card sleeves, sticker sets, because apparently I guess you can put some stickers on the wooden things, and then a whole bunch of other stickers. So that's just other options you can get, plus the Kickstarter edition has some even more stuff, and other add-ons, and acrylic stuff for the Kickstarter edition, and a bunch of unlockable stuff, too. Ugh. Yes. It's got a lot. And a bunch of different languages you can have it in, too. So, ooh, I want to talk about it, and I wanted to talk about one other too, and I'll just go over that one a little more briefly, and that's I Was a Teenage Creature, which is an RPG dealing with like very Buffy TV series, I would say. It's supposed to be in. Which it's got 22 days to go. It's a quarter of the way funded right now. For $15, I think it's $25 gets you it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure where it is, but it's a narrative-focused urban fantasy, more based on those young adult TV shows. So it's like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Dresden Files, that kind of thing. That's supposed to be getting that kind of, I guess, supernatural, paranormal, fantasy. But it's got that, it's got the Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV series feeling to it, so it's definitely it's not a dark series, so it's not going to be like dark paranormal. When they say young adult, they mean that it's like it's your PG-13 monster of the week kind of angst drama kind of things going on, kind of RPG. So that's why I thought it was very interesting out of there. So it's you can have like a lot of like the different kind of creatures. It's a 350-page book, or if they get all the stretch goals, they're hoping to get up towards maybe 400. They have some pre-generated characters and some ready-to-go scenarios to go with it. It's a D10 system, closer to World of Darkness D10 system. Yep. I think that's about it for going on about there, without going into too many details. But, yeah. So, check both these Kickstarters out. Alright, let's finish up today with our final segment, Ask the Table, where you out there can ask us questions about any kind of tabletop, or any kind of RPG, CCG, board game, anything in general, nerdy and stuff. We'll also answer if you got something for us. And if you are looking to ask us a question, you're not watching this while we are live, because if you're live, you can just throw it in a Twitch chat. You can always, of course, message us in one of many different ways. You can throw it in the description of when we're talking about it on YouTube. That's a great place to throw it. You can also throw it into my Discord while you try to reach me, which any of these, if we can answer them there, we will. If not, we'll answer it here on the show. We have our Twitters, which are noted below us. You can reach us there, or also discussingtabletop@yahoo.com if you want to email me something, if you feel that's more appropriate for contacting us. Yeah, I answer a lot of questions up on the YouTube and up on my Discord, and I rarely have a question that you guys are asking me that I feel like me and Joe have to dive deep into. But if you got something there, go ahead. That's another place. It's like, throw us a line. We'll answer questions for you. If we need to talk about it here, we will. But I think that's it for today's show. Sounds good. Looks good. I think we're good. thanks as usual, Joe, for joining me. As always, my partner in crime for this adventure. We'll be back next week. We are on scheduled to it. No guests are on the schedule for next week, at least as of right now. If there's something comes up, I will announce it either on Twitter and Discord. I'll let people know. The VOD should be up of this on YouTube during this week. If not, you can always watch the highlight, which I will throw up on Twitch, theoretically. Yeah. Yep, that's it. So, thanks for partying on. We'll see you next week. We'll both be here for Sundays at Tabletop tomorrow, too. That should be the next time I do it. I'm probably not streaming tomorrow because I'm off to my grandmother's for, like, an Easter thing. It's more food, hang out with my grandmother, but, you know, so. But, bye, everyone.